All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Wisdom and Wealth. I'm your host, Corey Proctor. I got a guy right now, Daniel Spencer, on from More Time Bookkeeping and Advisory. And bookkeeping master extraordinary. But we actually met in our mastermind group, Platinum Elevated, and getting to know each other. And if you guys aren't part of a mastermind group, especially if you're an entrepreneur trying to grow your business or trying to grow you and get around other people to elevate your game, it's a great place to be. You should be in a group. There's other ones like it, C12, EO, YPO, right? C12. Those are some other groups. Strategic Coach is that we've had a lot of people from our group that have been in that. But at least getting a group to challenge you, those are fantastic. But that's where Daniel and I met. And we got on the phone initially and we just started talking about some crazy things. And he made a statement that I'll share for after he introduces himself that caught my attention, that got us into a conversation that I wanted him to be on the podcast so you guys can get a piece of him. And so I didn't invite him on because he's bald and looks similar to
Yes.
me, although there's a handsome streak of fellows that are going in that direction. So, um, but I welcome onto the show, Daniel. It's good to have you, brother.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. So yeah, the bald part, the problem is you can grow a nice goatee. I've got no hair that grows well on my head, so it's you can work it a lot easier than I can on the bald part, but we got
Proper albino.
yeah, we got to stick together. So it's great. Well, I
Well,
appreciate it. I appreciate the time and yeah, and just getting to know you and everything was it's always been fun to watch other entrepreneurs just going out and hustling, doing whatever it takes to get their businesses grow um and I keep watching you. I always kept my eye on you, especially on LinkedIn stuff and just saying, what's Corey doing today? And it's always been fun and interesting to watch what you do with stuff and just the wisdom you share and the stuff that you share and the just how authentic you are too. I think that's a big draw for me to you as well. Is just you get the real Corey, whether you're in a hotel room chat or a hotel chatting with each other or on LinkedIn, you're getting the real Corey. So, but
I
yeah, so I've
appreciate
I've
it.
been in accounting for 15, 20 years. At one point I did a few things differently. I had a business that I ran with a buddy that we grew it and scaled it and got to a point where we had more and more investors involved, and I just said, "Hey, I don't think me and my family can go this next route." And so I kind of got out of doing that business and that operations, and said, "Well, what do I enjoy? What do I love to do?" And bookkeeping and accounting is kind of just where I land. I got back to my grassroots a little bit. Um, but the difference is after you've run a business and operated a business and had employees and worked with things, you start to realize just what it takes to run a business. So I'm trying to take the approach of not just accounting and bookkeeping, but just business operations holistically and how can the accounting and finance help all of that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit of what I'm doing right now with this more time at bookkeeping and advisory. I've got four kids right now. They're kind of ages 12 all the way down to 8. We're in the mix of school and baseball and all sorts of things. So we're getting to the busy and fun time of life with all of them. So that's kind of me in a nutshell there. So
That's awesome. What do do this? And we can kind of jump into it and we'll go all over. But first time we spoke, uh, you made a comment, and this is a lot of business owners. We find ourselves in this same exact same category, probably the bulk, right? We want one-stop shops. We don't want conflicting voices. We don't want battling voices, especially in our professionals. Gracious, there's enough opinion going around in the world, you know?
yeah,
But
serious.
like we want to be unified in that front. But you made a comment that stood out in our first phone call ever. right? And that was, you're like, you just made the statement. You were like, people need to separate their accountant from their CPA altogether.
Yeah.
Why? And we talked about it then, but share, like, okay, why is that?
So it it creates it gives you a team of people watching over your financial stuff. That's that's one aspect of it is it just gives another person to look at your books. The other part of it is, at least from what I've found in my experience, working with CPA firms, acquiring CPA firms, seeing patterns, seeing situations that happen in across the country, not just here, not just there in Texas, not just across the country. It's the same kind of challenge where if you have a guy, if you have your guy that does it all for you, he's probably only giving you 60%. If he's good, he's giving you 60% quality work in all of those categories, whatever he's
Mm,
doing for you. And so it's the same thing, kind of what you run into with wealth management. There's a lot of CPAs that were doing tax, they were doing accounting, they were doing payroll for people, they were doing wealth management and financial planning for them. They'd get their Series 7 license, and all of a sudden now they can tell you what to do with everything.
mm,
And most all of those that I met, they were not doing all of those well. They were doing the tax really well, but the financial side, they were just not giving great advice because they weren't in that enough. So separating it out is just as simple as saying your tax preparer should be focused on your tax prepare preparation and your planning, for as complicated as that gets. Plus, they have a seasonality to them. They're gone and they're busy from January till March or till April. And then there's another stints right now where we're in where we're dealing with extensions, and they're gone. They're busy. They got too much on their plate, but your business is still going to keep cranking, still going to keep going. You're going to have questions. You're going to need help with stuff. But quite often, what happens with those CPAs that are doing the bookkeepings is they're like, "Hey, I got to pause. I got to work on tax returns," or they're getting halfway done with the work, and you got half baked numbers that you're trying to make decisions off of until they come back and get all the stuff done. So the separation of it is one part of it is just that, hey, get someone that's going to focus on your books while your business is going and running all the time. And you're going to get someone that's going to be there with you to answer questions. That's one part of it. The second part of it is they can check and balance against the tax prep. I've
mm,
now picked up three clients, and one of the clients, the first thing I noticed, I said, okay, let me look at your tax return. Um, why isn't it balancing? Why isn't it matching up? Well, what we discovered was that the tax preparer, who was also the bookkeeper, actually prepared a accrual. They were accrual basis tax prepare or tax payer. So
mm,
their books needed to be on an accrual basis. Well, they prepared their tax return using cash basis financial statements. Not a big deal sometimes, but in this case, it was a $40,000 difference in revenue
mm.
for that year, and is also $40,000 difference or $20,000 difference in profit. And so
Real quick
nobody would have
before you
known
move
that.
on, quick explanation: cash versus accrual.
So cash versus accrual. So accrual basis accounting is if you invoice somebody in March, the revenue shows up in March. If they pay you in April on a cash basis, that revenue shows up in April. So accrual is using invoices, that's when it targets the revenue. So at the end of the year, if you invoice a bunch of people on December 31st, if you're accrual basis, all that revenue is in that tax year. If you're cash basis and they don't pay you till January, all the revenue is now in January, the next tax year, that kind of
Okay.
stuff. So,
Okay. Shoot,
so
what's the problem if somebody doesn't pay? You get half of those bills don't get invoices, don't get
you don't have,
collected.
yeah, you don't have the revenue. It depends on which way it goes, but it's in this case, their revenue should have been higher. And if they're looking for bank loans, on the banks go off of the tax return quite often. Now you're looking worse than what you were.
Right.
But also it's just a correct thing. Like they were accrual basis taxpayer. The return should have been done on an accrual basis, not on a cash basis.
Mm.
So that's one small example. The other ones are more a little less basic, where it's like, hey, um, I went through to I went through to tie out their books to a few of the adjustments that the tax preparer had made, and I realized I couldn't get them to balance in the equity account. Well, they put a phantom number by accident. It was completely by accident, but they put a number on their K1 of like $4,000 or $5,000. It was $4,800, and so it threw their basis off. It just it wasn't correct on their return. And so what it looked like was that they had higher basis, and that's getting into tax stuff, but that's higher base. So the point being, having it separated is just a check and balance thing as well.
Okay.
So
Okay. I get that. That's good. What tell me this. So like aside from them getting a basis situation wrong, what's the biggest problems that you see in that situation or biggest because I the reason I ask this is I'd say majority of the time we kind of refer to ourselves as a financial director of somebody's life. Like
yeah,
so like all these professionals on the team are either um they're either like not communicating at all or just doing a poor job of it. And so a lot of them are working in these silos. And so like we try to bring them together so at least we're all on the same page. And especially if there's different opinions, right? I want to make sure that we're doing things to make you look good and vice versa, and that we're doing things good for the client, and that everybody is on agreement in whatever route that we're taking. And so
yeah,
um, now that being said, majority, I would say majority professionals that we've worked with have been good and no problem at all. And they honestly want to work towards a solution. Um,
yeah,
versus I've had some times where, big boys want to act like a big boy and and they get, essentially they want to flex their feathers a little bit. And you get some egos getting in the way sometimes. But
yeah.
tell me when you're walking in those kind of situations, what's been your experience?
With the tax preparers and stuff like that,
Yeah. So
just
like
or
I just say I imagine like if I'm a CPA and I've been doing that of providing both those businesses, right? Now you're like, and I hear that, I'm like, well, I could get my feathers ruffled a little bit. Let's just say
oh
I'm the
yeah,
CPA
yeah.
and you're pulling it away from my client. Now I'm still maybe filing for them and running the returns, but I'm not doing the accounting anymore. So like have you run into those problems there?
Yeah, yeah. So there's quite a few accountants, tax preparers, I should say. Just they don't want to give up the bookkeeping. It's recurring revenue. But there's some element of it too, and this is the approach that I've taken with quite a few of them too, is that their bread and butter, especially if their bread and butter is tax, and that's what they enjoy doing and love doing. Generally with accounting, what I've found is you love the tax or you love the bookkeeping. You very rarely get people that just love to do both. They usually pick a side as they go along their career. But where we've been able to help quite a few of the tax preparers is they come to us. Sometimes they come to me and just say, I don't want to do this anymore because it usually takes up time from getting to the tax planning and preparing, because they're getting their books all ready to go, and they've kind of expended all the time and energy they can on getting them ready. And then it's like, well, now we got to sit back and go through the planning part of it. And there's you know what I mean? As far as time goes, they don't want to spend that much time. So they bring their stuff to me, or they let me handle it for them. They can now take a tax return charging $2,500 or whatever it is for a tax return. it takes them now an hour to 2 hours to get that tax return done during their busiest time of year, versus quite often what happens is they get their QuickBooks and it's like, guys, these records aren't correct. The books aren't quite correct. We got to get them fixed up. We got to get them taken care of. And now they're having to deal with that during tax season, their busiest time. And
Mm.
it's like, no, let someone else handle it. You be good at what you're doing. You do the tax plan. I'll give you the numbers. I'll get you the information, and then you just run the tax plan and get it done. And it just saves them so much more time than having to do it themselves and then expending all the time they have on it.
It just, I mean, you're spreading yourself thin, is what it sounds like,
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly what it is.
I think of imagine. I think I used I used to have an attorney that was next to our office next door, and I remember first time I met her. She's moved out. She was crazy, but like certified nuts. She went looking for a fight like outside our neighbors in these other office complex that we're in, and I'm like, what's wrong
Well,
with you? This is nuts.
yeah.
But she's getting fired off people in her parking spot. I'm like, it's open parking, lady. But it was just funny. But anyways, I remember the first time we had met, and I go, what kind of law you in? And she listed off like seven different types of law.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, I'm going to remember one of those. And I'm like,
Yeah.
immediately, it was too much for my brain to comprehend. But right away, my thought was I'm like, so you're not really good at any of
Yeah.
it. And, it's like, I'm not saying you're bad. I'm just saying you're not really great at any one of those areas of law.
Yeah.
Um, and so it wasn't good. But that was the opinion I walked away with. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of dismissed really easy, you know?
Yeah, because there's on the tax side and even on the law side, the more clients you have, the more revenue you can generate as far as when it comes to a tax return, because you're doing it 1,000 at a time, 2,000 at a time, versus the bookkeeping. You got usually have a monthly recurring stuff, but again, it's if you're if you're doing taxes during tax season, you're not doing bookkeeping during the tax season type of thing. And so you're spread out thin. It's hard to get to all of it at the same time, especially if you have 1,000 clients you got to do a tax return for, and you've only got 200 bookkeeping clients or something to that effect. It's still hard to get to those 200 because you got 1,000 you got to take care of during that time frame. You got a tight deadline to get through all of those. And that's where the burnout of accounting comes in. That's where all of these CPA firms right now are dealing with some of that, is nobody wants to work for them because they're constantly burned out. Your
Mm,
demands are high during tax season, and then after tax season's over, you got to catch up on everything you didn't do during tax season, and you got clients that are wanting this and demanding that, and it's you just don't have time for it all when
yeah,
they with the way they've been doing it. So separating it out just gives everybody the flexibility and the time and the specialty to just focus on the right areas and do it right for the client, versus half-baked tax returns and half-baked books. So,
yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, go into this. What are some of the biggest problems, I guess, top one to two problems you see on a consistent basis, or that are kind of the most explosive in somebody's tax bill? Because when we talk about it, tax is the number one bill of your life, right? I just got done teaching a high school group of high schoolers about it. I'm like, taxes are the number one thing in your entire life that you will pay for, and sharing how the top rate at one point was 94%. I mean, like insane disincentive for top performers, right? And
right,
so,
right.
what as you start looking through books or even disaster type stuff that you prevent, like what are the biggest problems or headaches? Because I could not see something. The biggest thing that a lot of our clients do, everybody cusses at taxes. Even if you've minimized them, they cuss at
Yeah,
taxes. And
yeah,
I still remember one of our clients is CPAs down South Texas, and he was like, "Oh, I just had this surprise tax bill pop on me," and I'm like, "Well, I don't know about how surprised you would be, just maybe just not familiar with what's going on all the time." And he guy was spending like crazy, but he ended up having a single digit actual rate of return or actual tax rate. And I'm like, well, listen, I wouldn't be spending that much, but your for what's
Yeah.
going on right now, your actual tax rate is pretty phenomenal, just so you're aware.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, what are some things that you see, or top one to two things that you see as like the biggest probabilities, or that like are the headaches that I don't anticipate until I get a tax bill and I'm cussing?
Yeah, the biggest thing with taxes, you're either saving for them or planning for them. And meaning saving for them means that you're just operating your business and hopefully at the end of the year you've got enough cash stored up to pay whatever it is because you're not paying attention to it. If you don't, then you got to go figure it out. If you're planning for it, it means your books are accurate every month. You got things going on. You know where your numbers are. You know where you're headed. You're in November at least, at bare minimum, November, you're checking your numbers with your tax preparer saying, hey, this is where we're trending. How much is it? And that's sometimes, especially the small business that I work with, that's the biggest thing that they run into is they're when they don't have a bookkeeper or somebody paying attention to it, is they just don't know where they're at. And it's too late. By the time January hits, and they've kind of run their numbers and finalized it out, it's too late to do a whole lot. You can't go buy a piece of equipment necessarily, or you can't, make some other tax planning situations. So that's one area that we see quite often is just not thinking about it and preparing for it ahead of time.
What now when you say not preparing for it, what does that look like? Because a lot of owners out there, we're used to the typical, here's your report for the month, right?
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's your report. And then at tax filing time, it's did you make any estimated payments? And you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm like, well, it would have been nice if you had asked me that before, right? And I'm like, now
yeah,
I have this tax bill that I didn't anticipate, but I had, maybe I stewarded my money well, so I got plenty of cash reserves to
yeah,
cover the bill. But um, if we could have spread this out, it would have been less of a hit, or
yeah,
nicer or easier of a hit to me, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. So I had a client actually that they just finished their paying their 2024 tax bill. And they've been doing really well. They've been crushing it. Their revenue is up, their profitability is up, their debt is down. Like they're doing really well. And I think the thing that surprises too many business owners is that they have to pay taxes when they do well.
Mhm.
And there's so that's a surprise. But she sent me an email and said, hey, can you give me an idea? I just paid a ton in tax. I don't necessarily want to do that again. I want to figure out what my options are. So I actually ran, we were through, at that point, we were through August. And so I ran the report through August, but then I projected out the remaining year based on kind of last year's number from September through December. I just tagged that on to this year's current numbers and said, "Hey, you're going to trend the same way right now. You're actually 50,000 higher in revenue right now through April or through August." So I did a comparison of where they're at last year to this year. That's a big thing with profit and loss. If you're just getting a profit and loss single column number just last month, you need to tell your bookkeeper, I want to see last year's compared to this year.
Mm.
You need to see the comparisons. And so that's what we did with her is I just ran those comparisons and said, "Hey, you're trending to be exactly where you were last year. We'll do this again in November." But she now knows right now she either needs to save the money or she does need to buy equipment. So that's one tax strategy that she has is going out and buying some equipment. The other thing she can do is work with someone like you and say, how do I set up a simple IRA? How do I, or a SEP or a 401k or something that she can put money away into that she can take out later, that kind of stuff. So that's what I did for a client just recently. But in November, all of my clients get, so after October is done, all my clients get a comparison report saying, this is where you were last year. This is where you're trending this year. If I know their tax preparer, I'll email it to the tax preparer and say, hey, can you run a tax plan on this? Give them an idea where they're going to be at. Because then that gives them 2 months to plan and prepare and do something about it. So,
That's good. That's awesome. No, I like that. I mean, that's kind of the ultimately thing that you want. You just the expectation gets set in your head, you know? And so when it's nobody likes surprises. Everybody likes it's I think I saw a quadrant study analysis and it was kind of like no duh on some of it.
yeah,
But everybody a positive surprise, no problem. But a negative surprise um is detrimental to your relationships, right? And
yeah,
so, but if it was an expected or anticipated even negative, then totally fine. You're like, well, he did bring this up as a potential issue downside, or that the bill could be this big, or the projected bill could be X, right?
yeah.
And then even if you're just in the ballpark, you've at least set the expectation instead of cussing at your tax bill some more. So
Yeah, yeah. It's a whole lot easier. It's better to have a plan that changes than no plan at all. So quite often, even with when I was doing more tax planning and stuff like that, we would gross up whatever number we're going to tell people a little bit. So we would estimate it $10,000 higher sometimes than what it truly was, just because it frustrates people less to find out that you got to pay 10,000 less than to find out you got to pay 10,000 more. That's just natural human, but um, so that's yeah. So it's just a matter of especially with a bookkeeper, are they paying attention? Are they looking at that kind of stuff? Are they paying attention for you? Are they working with your tax preparers to get that done? And if it is your tax preparer doing your books, are they taking the time in November, or are they looking forward to that 2 month vacation between November and January before tax season starts? And are they kind of just MIA again?
yeah.
So that's the biggest thing for me is right now is what I'm trying to just get help with small business owners is look, somebody's going to pay attention to it 12 months out of the year, not 3 months and then 6 months and in pieces. So
What tell me this. I was having coffee with a CPA yesterday that she was actually dumping her CPA side, her filing side, and just looking to become a tax strategist.
yeah,
And in our experience, CPAs look backward, they don't look forward, generally speaking.
yeah,
And so their product is how much in taxes I can save you today versus the projection. What we've kind of been talking about a little bit is the projection into the future years. And so a lot of it I've seen. And then a lot of times, even as buddy at the ranch, we were talking, he was like, man, I love my CPAs, but I got to bring this idea to them a lot of the
yeah,
times. And that strategy, and they'll just kind of shrug their shoulders like, yeah, we can do that. And I'm like, so it's more the kind of reinforcement of they're just, a lot of guys are just filers, and I get it. They're in the thick of it and heat of this tax season, and they're just trying to hammer stuff out, but at the same time, lacking of the strategy. What I mean, what's been your opinion of the business so far when it's come to those guys? Like, are they forward thinkers? Are they looking ahead at those kind of projections, or is it still stuck in that? Is my assumption right or my generality right if I'm reading it the way that way?
yeah. No, it very much is. We've accounting has always been a historical look back. This is what happened, guys, in this past month or this past year. But the biggest thing, so something to bring up about this is a business owner should have a business strategy that involves a tax strategy. And too often, business owners are doing the reverse. They're going to their CPA and saying, hey, give me a tax strategy to tell me how to run my business. And when you do that, your CPA is not going to say, "Oh yeah, you should invest in this because you should invest in this piece of equipment because it will make you more efficient or it will help you generate more revenue. He's saying, no, you should invest this piece of equipment because then you can write it off in the whole year. And it's like, well, do you need that piece of equipment? Not really. It's not, it doesn't really fit with the business strategy, but it fits great with a tax strategy of reducing my tax liability. And so then you end up with a piece of equipment or some asset that's not really doing much good for your business strategy. So that's what you're getting. They're going to protect against you having a large tax liability, but in reality, maybe what you really need is a strategy that says, "Hey, this is how you could grow your revenue. This is how you could grow your profitability so that you can pay for the actual taxes that you're going to have to pay." That's a business strategy that says, "I want to grow the business." Then you go to your tax person and say, "Hey, I'm going to have a tax liability of 60,000. I would like to level that out to where I only pay 45,000 every year. That's what my goal is." So then it's like you're looking at it every year, not as how do I get this to zero, but how do I level this out to a point where it's like I'm willing to pay this based on what my revenue is. This is what I want to pay. So help me come up with because I want to grow my business, right? So if I'm doing 800,000, I want to make money. If I'm doing a million, I want to make money. But take that to them and say, hey, I'm going to pay 60 with the projection we have, but I want to pay 45. What are some strategies that help me lower the tax liability? And it doesn't jeopardize now your business strategy because you still want to grow, but you're hitting like I only want to pay this much in tax. What can I do to get there? Not this, I want to eliminate all tax. I want to be profitable and have money, but I want to pay zero tax. Like you never make it in that kind of
Right.
a scenario.
It's can't put my whole life in a Roth.
Right, right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. No, that's great. I love it. I love it because I mean I love digging on other professionals. I'm very much a fan of American Way, Sam Walton, right?
Yeah.
And it very much like yes, we find problems. That's how we come bring value into a lot of people's lives is identifying and solving those problems. But at the same time, when I see other professionals, especially if we're on a mutual ground or somewhat mutual beneficial ground, I try to be. I'm looking for what's winning. What are they doing well that potentially I'm not doing that I could apply to my business somehow? And so that that's what I start thinking about with that is um, the egos that I see in this business are pretty interesting, especially with those opinions flying around, because it almost like you start seeing this step away from the client altogether,
Yeah.
and so um, it's interesting. Some of these guys are jerks, man, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I got to deal with some of these guys.
Seeing that, yeah, and that's what I hope. That's what I wish this industry as a whole could just get better at a little bit is seeing how between a tax preparer and a bookkeeper and a financial planner and an attorney, all of these guys that are they're all their goal is the same to help the business owner be successful. So just start working together. If the attorney recommends you be a certain entity, but it doesn't quite line up with maybe the tax side of things, instead of saying, well, that attorney's an idiot or that CPA is an idiot, why don't you get on the phone and maybe talk to him a little bit, or maybe you try to understand like what is the strategy that was communicated to the attorney or the financial planner that wasn't communicated properly to the tax preparer, and now it's like, hey, let's have a meeting of the minds, and you've got a whole team of people trying to just find the right solution for you. Because I've seen that a number of times too, where you get those egos. No, I know better. You shouldn't be that entity. You should be this entity. Well, it's based on what strategy you want. So
Yeah.
who let's get together and find the middle ground. Let's stop calling each other idiots and figure out how each other can work together on this and find a solution. Like,
I like the trash talk. I call my friends idiots. That's what I do.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah. It's no, we all do it. I mean, I've said it before with CPAs. I mean, like, what were they doing? Why didn't they? why didn't they just do this instead? And like, I'm not necessarily a tax preparer, but I know some things, so I can pay attention to certain things. But yeah, I wish we could get that more cohesive, get the egos out of the room and just get the solutions back into them and
Yeah.
and move on. So
Small minds, big egos.
yeah.
Um, tell me this before we cut this off and go off. This has been awesome, but I want to stay within our time. What's something exciting that you're working on in your business? Like where you're winning and that's building on, or something you're going after, but what's got you excited right now?
So I had kind of just a shift where I've been thinking just bookkeeping. How can I be a bookkeeper for somebody? And so, and especially with AI coming on, um, the reality of this is I want to be a systems guy almost. How do I
Mhm.
get your accounting system functioning well inside of your business? So not just focused on money came in from the bank, I put it in your books and here's your pretty report, but just hey, is your how are you collecting money? How are you paying your bills? Is it done in a way that's efficient and effective for you? If a client doesn't pay you in a certain period of time, how are you going about getting that? What's the system in place? What's the process in place to go get that money? And that happens often at the larger levels at a necessity, but sometimes at the smaller level, we just kind of we lose sight of it because they're wearing so many hats. Business owners wear so many hats. So I'm trying to figure out just the right mix of things where it's like, hey, we've got AI stuff that can help you do this and think this way. We've got system over here that can help you do this and this way. And so I'm a little more jazzed up of just like, how do I become a systems guy for these people instead of just a bookkeeper? So
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's very much, I think we kind of start getting on the same wavelength as some things, right? Some consulting that we do is a lot, some business coaching, and it's a lot of like, I love somebody in our group said, I either you should be working with somebody. Don't work with it. I mean, like, don't you don't want the cookie cutter stuff from all the firms. I want somebody is kind of like you wouldn't take parenting advice from a parent that doesn't have kids, somebody that wouldn't have
yeah,
never had any kids, right? So at the same
yeah,
time, like, why am I taking advice from a non-entrepreneur or somebody who hasn't been through the issues? Should have gone through or are going through the same issues that I am, and
yeah,
those are the things that that are relatable to me. Like, how have you handled this in the past, or how have you seen your other people handle it in the past? And it's not BS and straight line that a lot of people will do, but it's either, man, I haven't seen much of this, or this is the exact scenario where I can speak specifically where it was handled in X fashion. You know.
yeah.
Um, well, dude, okay. Well, to close off with this, you brought this up earlier, so now I'm curious.
Okay.
You, ta- you talked about like checking with me on LinkedIn and seeing what was going on. Has there been anything that stood out to you most that I shared? I'm going to reuse it.
You're gonna reuse it. Um,
Or
yeah.
maybe even our mastermind last week that was in person. Anything stand out besides an ogre sitting at the coffee shop in the hotel?
No reset. No. So I I think we'll going back to our conversation there is I don't know if you've talked about that you're doing a book or not. Is that public knowledge or not? So
I've, I've hinted at it. I
you've
haven't
hinted
shared,
at
but
it.
it'll
Okay.
that's okay. You're good. It's going to come
Okay.
out real fast.
So just again the knowing your story, seeing the jersey behind you. Imagine that your jersey behind you.
Yeah, that's
So
mine.
just the story of your NFL player going through that grind. We all know that that's not an easy, that's not an easy thing to do. You come out of that, and now you're going into financial world. And I think the one I'm trying to remember where it was. I'm gonna miss it, but you talked about how you go back to the Cowboys, and you're teaching some of these guys, some of these rookies about financial planning and being good with your money and doing all that kind of stuff. You mentioned earlier today too that you were teaching some was it younger kids or whatever about
High
high
schoolers.
school kids.
Yeah.
So that's to me that giving back mentality of sharing what you know, sharing your wisdom. Honestly, feel like that's the stuff that's like, man, I want to follow this Corey guy because he's constantly giving back, he's constantly sharing, he's constantly giving, and he's real and he's authentic. Those are the things that I see. That's what I see in the ogre that was standing up on stage doing a with the magician or whatever at that conference. So, that's what I see in this guy is just a real authentic guy that's willing to give and share and do good for other people. So,
I appreciate that. I feel like we got a really great group for that. There has and we've like as entrepreneurs, we get in some groups. There's some I know there's some that don't get in some groups, but some that do. And it's probably like the BNI, the referral groups, right? Where you're
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
build your business in the beginning. And there's this weird expectation air. But it's a different, like I'll tell you where I'm very expectant is in my faith. And we're like, I'm not expectant from you specifically if, I give you a gift or something like that, but or send you a referral that you gotta get back to me. That's where I feel like the smaller groups are
yeah,
a lot of times is like this air of expectation from you to provide. And I'm like, and I never liked that. I never liked that air because I'm like, brother, I don't have to provide for you. I'm providing for my family, you know?
right,
I'm like,
right,
that's who I'm responsible for.
right,
And so in our group, now granted, there's a higher price tag to gain entry,
yeah,
which quells a lot of that. But the spirit of our group is a lot because of the leadership, but the type of people that are in there is very much everybody's open and I forget the guy's name, but I remember the one guy getting, I think our first Zoom meeting, the guy was like, we lost our biggest client last night. And or at our first in-person event, my first in-person event, guy got up and they were training NBA basketball teams and players, and they were like, we just got fired from one of the professional teams. And
yeah,
you're like, holy cow, like these are people that are doing some pretty amazing things in their business
yeah,
and taking a big blow. And so I think that it was cool because I don't think, I'm not happy for that. But what it did was provide a spirit of that authenticity to the group that really created a lot of vulnerability, a lot of people to come out of their shell. And
yeah,
and so it's like, okay, yeah, I do have problems in the business. Yes, I am going after these pieces, or I have had an awesome quarter or year or whatever. And but I am still dealing with these issues or trying to get my mind around where I'm supposed to be executing the most efficient. And and so was just kind of interesting. So, anyways, I say that because one, I'm thankful for you sharing that, but two, I think we have a great environment where
yeah.
it's encouraged. So, um, it's a it's a village a lot of
Yeah,
times too.
yeah. Like-minded people are finding each other in this place.
Heck yeah,
So
Daniel, I appreciate you coming on, man. Tell everybody where they can find you. Tell what social media site. Tell me where.
I'm still working on some of that kind of stuff, but just right now, moretimeadvisory.com. Go to website. You can book time with me if somebody needs to and wants to just go through it. I'm happy to get on people's calendars, get on my calendar. I'll give you advice. If I can solve whatever problem you're dealing with on the call, I don't send you a bill for it. Just chalk it up as, hey, tell somebody that I solved a problem for you, and maybe they'll sign up later on. But that's the approach I take. I don't even have a sales pitch anymore. I was just like, hey, what problem are you dealing with? Let's solve it right now. If we can solve it right now, then we'll move on. If not, then you can hire me to help you solve it in another way or whatever. But I just want to help people solve problems and get going. So just moretimeadvisory.com is the website. That's probably the best way to get to me right now. So
Awesome. Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
I thank you. Appreciate your time on this. So